Our story begins in the autumn of 1973 at the Monastery of St. Catherine, nestled deep in the mountains of southern Germany. Sister Margaret had been a nun for nearly 15 years, known throughout the monastery for her kindness, her devotion to prayer, and her gentle spirit. She was 38 years old, with a serene face that seemed to radiate peace. The other sisters often said that being near Margaret felt like being touched by grace itself. She spent her days in prayer, tending to the monastery gardens, and helping care for the elderly nuns who could no longer perform their duties. But something changed in Sister Margaret during the harsh winter of that year. It started subtly at first. She began complaining of terrible nightmares that would wake her in the middle of the night, drenched in sweat and unable to remember what she had dreamed. The Mother Superior, a stern but caring woman named Mother Catherine, initially dismissed these complaints as simple stress or perhaps the result of the particularly cold weather affecting everyone's sleep. However, the nightmares quickly escalated into something far more sinister. Sister Margaret started experiencing violent headaches that would leave her writhing in pain on the cold stone floor of her cell. The monastery's physician examined her multiple times but could find no physical cause for her suffering. He prescribed rest and prayer, the standard treatment for ailments they couldn't explain. But rest brought no relief, and prayer seemed to make things worse. Within a month, Sister Margaret's behavior became increasingly bizarre and frightening. During morning prayers, she would suddenly stop chanting and stare blankly at the crucifix hanging above the altar, her eyes wide and unblinking for minutes at a time. Other nuns reported hearing strange scratching sounds coming from her cell at night, like fingernails dragging across stone walls. When they would check on her, they'd find Margaret sitting perfectly still in the darkness, whispering in languages none of them recognized. The turning point came on a freezing February morning during Mass. As Father Dominic, the monastery's priest, raised the chalice during consecration, Sister Margaret let out a blood-curdling scream that echoed through the ancient chapel. She fell to the ground, convulsing violently, her body contorting in ways that seemed physically impossible. Her voice changed, becoming deep and guttural, speaking in what Father Dominic later identified as Latin, but an ancient form of Latin that hadn't been spoken in over 1,000 years. The words she spoke were horrifying blasphemies against God, against the Virgin Mary, and against everything holy. The other nuns fled in terror, but Mother Catherine and Father Dominic stayed, trying desperately to restrain Margaret as she thrashed about with superhuman strength. It took 4 strong men from the nearby village to finally subdue her and carry her back to her cell, where she was locked inside for everyone's safety. Father Dominic immediately contacted the bishop, explaining the situation and requesting permission to perform an exorcism. The bishop was skeptical at first, as the church had become increasingly cautious about declaring cases of genuine demonic possession. He sent 2 investigators, both priests trained in psychology and theology, to examine Sister Margaret and determine if this was truly a case requiring exorcism or simply a severe mental illness. What these priests witnessed during their 3-day investigation convinced them beyond any doubt that Sister Margaret was indeed possessed by a demonic entity. She displayed knowledge of things she couldn't possibly know, including intimate details about the investigators' personal lives and sins they had never confessed to anyone. She spoke fluently in Aramaic, Ancient Greek, and several other dead languages that Sister Margaret had never studied. Her eyes would sometimes roll back completely, showing only the whites, and her voice would shift between multiple distinct personalities, each more malevolent than the last. Most disturbing of all was the physical evidence. Deep scratches would appear on Margaret's arms and face seemingly out of nowhere, spelling out words and languages the investigators couldn't immediately identify. The temperature in her cell would drop dramatically whenever they tried to pray, their breath visible in the air despite it being spring. Crucifixes would fall from the walls, and holy water would boil when brought near her. The bishop granted permission for the exorcism, and Father Dominic was assigned to perform the ritual, assisted by the 2 investigating priests and Mother Catherine. They prepared for weeks, fasting and praying, studying the Roman ritual, and fortifying themselves spiritually for the battle ahead. The exorcism was scheduled to begin on the 1st of May, 1974. On that fateful morning, they entered Sister Margaret's cell to find her sitting calmly on her bed, smiling sweetly as if nothing was wrong. But the moment Father Dominic began reading the opening prayers, that sweet smile twisted into a grotesque sneer. Margaret's body began to levitate several feet off the bed, rotating slowly in the air as that terrible voice erupted from her throat, mocking them and threatening them with graphic descriptions of torture and damnation. The exorcism lasted for 3 days and 3 nights. During that time, the priests witnessed phenomena that would haunt them for the rest of their lives. Furniture moved on its own, hurled at them with violent force. The walls of the cell seemed to breathe and pulse as if alive. The demonic voice speaking through Margaret revealed dark secrets about each person in the room, trying to break their faith and drive them away. Sister Margaret's body was subjected to terrible abuse by the entity possessing her. She would contort into impossible positions, her joints bending backward, her spine arching until her head nearly touched her heels. She would speak in multiple voices simultaneously, creating a cacophony of blasphemy and hatred. At times, she would become completely rigid, her body as hard as stone, impossible to move or bend. Father Dominic persevered, reading the prayers of exorcism hour after hour, commanding the demon to reveal its name and depart from God's servant. On the 2nd day, the entity finally revealed itself, claiming to be a fallen angel of significant power who had been summoned and bound to Margaret by someone practicing dark arts in the village below. The demon refused to leave, claiming it had been given legal right to possess Margaret through a curse placed upon her. The investigation that followed this revelation uncovered a disturbing truth. A woman in the village, jealous of the attention and respect Sister Margaret received, had consulted with someone practicing witchcraft and paid to have a curse placed on the nun. This woman confessed everything to the bishop and begged for forgiveness, breaking the curse and removing the demon's claimed right to remain. On the 3rd night, as dawn approached, Father Dominic performed the final prayers of exorcism. Sister Margaret's body went completely still, hovering in the air for one final moment before falling limply to the bed. A terrible roar filled the cell, so loud that everyone in the monastery heard it, and then silence. Sister Margaret opened her eyes, and they were her own again, filled with tears and confusion. The exorcism was complete, but Sister Margaret was forever changed. She had no memory of the months of possession, only fragments of nightmares and darkness. She remained at the monastery for 2 more years before quietly leaving to live with relatives, unable to continue her religious life after such trauma. She passed away in 1991, taking many details of her ordeal to the grave. Father Dominic never performed another exorcism. He said the experience had shown him the reality of evil in a way that shook him to his core. The monastery of St. Catherine still stands today, though the cell where the exorcism took place has been sealed and is never used. So there you have it, the terrifying true story of Sister Margaret's exorcism. Whether you believe in demonic possession or not, the people who witnessed these events were forever changed by what they saw. It reminds us that there are things in this world that we may never fully understand, darkness that exists beyond our comprehension. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends who love horror stories. Don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell. Let me know in the comments what you think about this case and whether you'd like to hear more true exorcism stories. Until next time, stay safe and remember, some doors are better left unopened.